At the outset, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I'm joining you at this event today, the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. I pay my respects to the elders past and present. The Australia-India Research Students Fellowship Program is supporting emerging researchers, right from project students from master's level up to the postdoc level. And it is kind of going to support the researchers from both India and Australia to undertake short-term research exchanges. We have about 70 fellowships that are available, 35 for Indian applicants and 35 for Australian applicants. The fellows will undertake a research project during this exchange program anywhere between 4 weeks up to 8 weeks during 2023. Further details will be given to you by Dr. Karen Barker later on. This webinar is kind of primarily aimed at researchers, both kind of student researchers and postdoc researchers, as well as academics who may be supporting you, who are working at the higher education institutions in both Australia and India. It will provide information about the program, the guidelines, and then it will allow some more time for you to ask questions. The program is led by the Australia-India Institute and funded by the Australian Government's Department of Education. First, we are going to hear from the CEO of the Australia-India Institute, the Honorable Lisa Singh, who is the chair of the annual Australia-India Leadership Dialogue. We had one of these dialogues in September in Delhi. And she's also a former Australian senator and the first woman of South Asian heritage to be elected to the Australian Parliament. She's also the deputy chair of the Australian government's Australia-India Council. In 2014, she was awarded the Pravasi Bharatiya Saman by the President of India for building friendly Australia-India relations. This is the highest civilian honor for a person of Indian origin. That tells us how, the service that Lisa Singh is doing to the community. Without saying much, I would like to now invite Lisa to say a few words. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you very much, Professor Ashok Kumar, for that warm introduction, and welcome everyone, research students and potential applicants, for joining us today for this important briefing for the Australia-India Institute's invitation for research students and early career researchers, both in Australia and in India, to learn about our Australia-India Research Students Fellowship Program. Can I start by acknowledging the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, who are the traditional owners of the land on which I meet with you here today, and pay my respects to their local people for allowing us to have this gathering on their land, and to their elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to acknowledge Mr. David Atkins, who's the Assistant Secretary of the Australian Government's Department of Education, for joining us today, and for the department's support for this very, very great initiative that the Institute is very honoured to administer on behalf of the Australian Government. These AIRS fellowships very much support emerging researchers from India and Australia to undertake short-term research exchanges. As Professor Ashok Kumar has outlined, there will be 70 fellowships in total, up to 10,000 AUD to be awarded. That will make up 35 awards available to applicants from higher education institutions within each country, Australia and India. Of course, our two countries have a very long history of research engagement, from science and technology cooperation to our most recent comprehensive strategic partnership that covers a variety of research interests for both of our nations. So research collaboration across our natural boundaries is so important to promote the bilateral ties between our two countries. And on top of that, of course, our Indian diaspora researchers here in Australia have been very much a driving force in that bilateral research cooperation. So it is our hope that through this fellowship program, we will even broaden even further and expand that capacity for our research collaboration. These AIRS fellowships are very much part of the Australian government's action plan for the India Economic Strategy to 2035, and an excellent opportunity for you as emerging researchers, whether you're in Australia to develop your India capabilities, or whether you're in India to develop your Australia capabilities, to help create those long-lasting connections between both of our countries. Applications will be made available, or are now already available, in fact, through our Australian Researcher Cooperation Hub India, what we call Arch India, through that website, which is a digital platform that promotes all sorts of research engagement between Australia and India, and remain open until Sunday, the 13th of November. So I do hope that you learn a lot today about the fellowship program, that you make the most of this wonderful opportunity through applying for one of these AIRS fellowships, because I really think they will have a long-lasting, enduring impact on your research and on your personal development. And I hope that your institution will also, be hosting one of these AIRS fellows in 2023. So we very much look forward to you being part of this program, and thank you for joining us today for this important briefing session. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Lisa. I would like to now introduce Dr. David Atkins. Dr. Atkins is Assistant Secretary, Quality Branch, International Division of Australian Government's Department of Education. As I already mentioned, the program is funded by the Department of Education. He previously served in other policy and implementation roles in the department, and also worked at the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet. He holds graduate degrees in physical sciences and public administration. He has also worked in Asia and Europe in senior private sector roles. Without doing much further, I would like to now invite Dr. Atkins to say a few words. David.
Thank you very much, Professor Ashok Kumar, and Lisa, for your words, and Professor, particularly for the kind introduction. As we start, I would just like to attach myself to the acknowledgement of country that has been given today, and note or pay respects to the Ngunnawal people, in the case, my case, joining you from Canberra. Today, I'd also like to welcome all participants, on behalf of the department. This year is the 75th anniversary of bilateral relations between India and Australia, and it's a great opportunity to reflect upon the importance of people-to-people links, which is really what bilateral relationships are about. And if we reflect on people-to-people links, research connections made when people are in early career stages, be they postdoctoral fellows, be they students, graduate students, are a really very important pillar of those people-to-people links, and an important aspect of the educational relationship between our two countries, which is so deep, wide and successful and long-lived. Academic mobility and research collaboration are crucial to the educational aspects of the relationship. Some of these factors were reflected upon in August, when the Indian Minister for Education and Minister for Skills Development and Entrepreneurship, Honourable Shri Dharmendra Pradhan, visited Australia and met with Minister Jason Clare, the Australian Minister for Education. And also earlier this week, when India's External Affairs Minister Jai Shankar and Minister Clare met. In both cases, the importance of education, research and mobility in the bilateral education relationship were topics of discussion. And when Minister Pradhan was in Australia, he and Minister Clare announced this very program that you are hearing this webinar about today. Of course, this program wouldn't have been brought to you without an enormous amount of hard work by a number of colleagues, both the committee that Professor Ashok Kumar chairs, but especially the institute that Lisa leads. The Australia-India Institute has, since 2009, been at the heart of contributing to enhancing Australia's bilateral education engagement with India, and delivered projects that strengthen education and research collaboration and promote people-to-people links, especially research and academic mobility. And this program that you'll hear about today is a flagship example of that sort of work that the Australia-India Institute has been doing. It's my a privilege to be able to issue a call to action to all the participants on the webinar. The Australian government is very pleased to be investing in research mobility in this way, and we will see 70 early career stage researchers undertaking exchanges in 2023 through this program. Your individual work will have the opportunity to foster emerging research links that will be long lived through your career. And you'll be able, and through this program, we're delighted to be fostering emerging practitioners to expand their research credentials and their research horizons. This program will encourage and support participants to gain unique experiences and contribute to advancing their individual research sectors. So I encourage you to harness the opportunity that this fellowship program brings, that it offers you. Look for opportunities to collaborate and find innovative solutions to global challenges and shared research priorities between India and Australia through the program, and participate individually in building the people-to-people and institution links that so closely bind our two wonderful democracies. Thank you very much, and I'll hand back to Professor Ashok Kumar.
Thank you, Dr. Atkins. I can see that already lots of questions are posted on chat function. I would like to request you to just hold on to your questions until you hear the guidelines from Dr. Karen Barker. So we will have just one more acknowledgement for the steering committee, and then Dr. Karen Barker will kind of outline the guidelines, and then you can put your questions, because most of these questions will be answered by the presentation that Dr. Karen Barker will be doing soon. So at this stage, I would like to just acknowledge the contribution from the steering committee. So we have the steering committee members from a number of different leading institutions, and also a number of leaders, research leaders, academic leaders, diplomatic leaders. So we have representation from Australian Department of Education, Australian High Commission to India, and we have ISER Tirupati Director, the University of Pune Academics, National Institute of Planning and Administration, NIPA from Delhi, University of Madras, and from Australian side, University of Melbourne, Western Australia, Western Sydney, and also, of course, the institute colleagues. So we have really a strong team of people worked very hard on developing these guidelines, and they will be also evaluating your applications, and they basically will be acting as selection panel members. And so we are all kind of really looking forward to reading your applications and looking forward to your contribution to the Australia-India partnership or relationship. Without doing much, I will now introduce Dr. Karen Barker, who is the Executive Manager at the Australia-India Institute. She's also heading up the project team. Her work focuses on government projects supporting bilateral education relationship between Australia and India. Dr. Karen Barker.
Thanks very much, Professor Ashok. And my job here is to tell you all about the fellowships and then open up for questions afterwards, which Professor Ashok and I will endeavour to answer. I do want to also acknowledge the traditional owners of the land from which I'm joining you, which is the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. And I also pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. And I'd like to add my voice to Professor Ashok's commendation of the steering committee who've been working on this project. We really appreciate their support and Professor Ashok's support in particular. So thank you very much to them. So I'm going to share my screen now and take you through some of the details of the fellowship program. I hope you can all see that screen of the slides. Okay, so make sure I can move this along. All right, we've heard a little bit about the background and the ministerial announcements and support for this program. You've also heard a little bit about the outline of the program. So we know that 70 fellowships are available, and the aim is to provide 35 fellowships to Indian applicants and 35 to Australian applicants. I just want to emphasise the point that it's open to research students and postdoctoral scholars, so that's early career researchers across all disciplines. And so that's the STEM students, but also the HAS students. The fellows will undertake research projects for during an exchange of 4 weeks to 8 weeks, and all the fellowship exchanges need to be completed by mid-October, 15th of October 2023. And we'll see this appear. These dates appear later on in this slide presentation. The aims of the fellowship program are to connect Australian and Indian research students. And as Dr. David Atkins was mentioning, we're trying to foster deeper collaborations in research between Australia. And we're also trying to contribute to greater mobility of students between Australia and India. I'm just going to mention from the outset some of the key features that perhaps attracted you to this information session. The fellowships are short exchanges, so the minimum period is 4 weeks, up to a maximum of 8 weeks. The funding that's available is very generous, and it takes into account both the length of stay and the cost of living in the host country. So you can see that Australian fellows travelling to India receive between either 6,200 or to 7,600 Australian dollars, depending how long they stay. But Indian fellows travelling to Australia receive more. They receive $8,000 up to $10,000. And that's because we've done some calculations around the different cost of living in Australia. And we know that they'll have higher costs for their accommodation in particular and cost of living. The sorts of things you can spend the funds on are a return economy airfare, your visa, cost of accommodation. You might be taking out additional travel and health insurance to meet your particular requirements. Transport costs, so that's taxis and Ubers and Olas from airports to your accommodation and to your to help you undertake your fellowship activities. Standard living expenses. You might be interested in doing some language training or translation, and you might be attending conference while you're there, so conference registration or the cost of events associated with your research activities in the host country. So let's get down to who's eligible, because this is the key threshold question. This program is open to Masters by Research students, and that includes Masters of Science and Masters of Philosophy. Also, we're opening it up to Masters by Coursework students who are undertaking a research subject or a research component. So the key attribute is about research. Doctoral research students, including PhDs and Doctors of Philosophy, are also eligible. And if you've received your PhD within the last 5 years, you are also eligible if you're part of an eligible institution, and I'll get to the eligible institutions shortly. Who's not eligible? So undergraduate students are not able to apply, and also doctoral students already participating in a joint PhD program are not eligible to apply, and that's because the program is focused on creating opportunities for Australian and Indian research students who don't already have that opportunity to connect. So the joint PhD participants already have that opportunity. There are a couple of requirements around the eligibility. So you have to remain enrolled as a student for the duration of the fellowship. So you can't finish your course midway through your fellowship. You must remain enrolled for the entire period of the fellowship. Or if you're a postdoctoral scholar who's employed at an institution, you have to remain employed there for that duration. And we also have a nationality requirement. So applicants from Australian higher education institutions must be Australian citizens or permanent residents. and applicants from Indian higher education institutions must be Indian citizens. That's because this program is about bringing Australian and Indian researchers together. The next important piece of information is around the eligibility of your institution. So in Australia and India, all higher education providers, all higher education institutions are eligible to participate. The crucial factor is that your institutions, the home and host institution, have to have a pre-existing engagement activity. So we need you to have some kind of connection between your institutions. That might be a memorandum of understanding for academic cooperation, and these sorts of MOUs happen at an institutional level, but it need not be that you have an MOU. There's a lot of other kind of engagement activity that could exist. So, for example, there might be researcher to researcher collaborations, there might be joint publications, there might have been guest lectures given between one university and the other. So it's quite a broad opportunity here, and we'll dig in a little bit deeper about pre-existing engagement activities later on, and also in the answers to your questions. The research project itself can either be for a new research project, or it can be a contribution to your thesis if you're doing a PhD or a master's thesis, or an existing research project. When you come to do your application form, which is an online form, you'll be asked to provide a description of the research project and to outline the activities and benefits that you expect from the fellowship opportunity. The description of the research project will ask you for the title of the research project, a more elaborate description, some information about the research methodology, and a research outline or structure, the research that you will complete during the fellowship. The activities and benefits, you'll be asked about the main activities during the exchange, and also the expected outputs from the fellowship, including the potential to develop publications, articles, or conference presentations. And you'll also be asked to provide a statement on why you are applying for the fellowship, and that will be taken into account by the selection panel. The process itself is, the first thing we ask you to do is to contact your supervisor to get some advice about whether you can or should participate. And then we also ask that you contact your international office, or the office at your university that is responsible for engaging with internationally. And that's because we need the international office to advise you on eligible host institutions. So we can't provide that advice because we don't know all the engagement that your institution has with other institutions. They need to tell you which institutions in Australia or India they have pre-existing engagement activities with. And they also can help you obtain a letter of support from the host institution. So we need the host institution to confirm that they can host the applicant. And the home institution also has to issue a letter of support, and we'll have a look at those in a minute. And we're asking applicants to also obtain a letter of recommendation from their supervisor or their course coordinator. So let's start with that one. The letter of recommendation from the supervisor or course coordinator, we've provided a template on our website, and we'll share the link to that website at the end of the presentation. So this letter of recommendation has to indicate that it supports your participation in the fellowship program, that they approve the proposed dates of travel, and if applicable, that arrangements have been made in relation to any lectures or classes that have been scheduled during the fellowship period. They have to confirm that you're suitable to participate in the fellowship program and have capacity to successfully complete and undertake the research project and the activities. And they're also invited to provide additional comments on the suitability and capacity of the applicant. And that's important because that's an opportunity for the supervisor to say some additional things about your application, and that's a letter that will be taken into consideration by the selection panel. So you have to make sure they sing your praises. We've also provided a template letter of support for the host institution, and as much as possible, we'd like these to come from the international office, but if you don't have an international office, they can come from the Vice Chancellor's office or another institutional office. So we need the host institution to say that they will host the applicant for the fellowship period and confirm that they've got pre-existing engagement with the home institution. We're also asking the hosts to provide a research mentor who can meet regularly with the applicants and provide access to a study space, internet facilities and library access during the period of the fellowship, and reasonable support for applicants with disabilities or other relevant medical conditions. We're also asking the host institution to confirm that they will support the fellows' compliance with local rules and regulations. And when we came up with this particular requirement, we had in mind, for example, that Australian students who are travelling to India might be required to register with local authorities. And we're also asking hosts to provide opportunities for the fellows to participate in the academic life of the host institution and to connect with researchers and research students, either in their research area or other relevant research areas. We've also got template letters of support from the home institution. So that we need the home institution to say they're supporting the applicant's travel to the host institution and that there is pre-existing engagement with the host. We want the home institution to confirm that the applicants will be covered for travel and health insurance and that the applicant will obtain all those necessary insurances to meet their individual circumstances. We're asking them to provide ongoing support for the well-being of the applicants throughout the fellowship period while they're overseas. And we're also asking the home institution to check passports for us to make sure that you have the nationality that we require for this program and also the passport validity date. So we know, for example, that travellers to India will require at least an extra 6 months on their passport. But you need to check that with your home institution. So again, there is a template letter that your institution can use. When you're ready to submit your application, you can review the guidelines on our website. There's an application form and you'll be asked to upload documents, which will include a resume, as well as the letter of recommendation and the letters of support from the home and host institutions. And we'll ask you to sign a declaration electronically and submit the application on the form. And before you can even open up the application form, you will need to register on that website. So that's on our platform called Arch India, and we'll be sharing the link to that website in the chat box. Applications remain open until the 13th of November at 6 p.m. in India and 11:30 p.m. in Australia. And once you've submitted your application, you'll receive an email acknowledgement that we've received it. Then what happens after we've got your application? Well, after the close of applications, the selection panel will be convened. The Australia-India Institute project team will review the applications to make sure that they are eligible and that they include all the relevant documentation. And then the selection panel will meet and consider the applications and assess them against the assessment criteria. So the assessment criteria include a well-defined research proposal, the expected outputs from the fellowship, including the potential to develop publications and conference presentations, and the statement on why you are applying for the fellowship. The selection panel can also take into consideration your resume, the letter of recommendation from your supervisor or course coordinator. And they also will consider the diversity and distribution of fellows across institutions in both Australia and India, because we want to ensure that we have 35 fellows from India and 35 from Australia, but from different, diverse range of institutions. And they're also going to consider the balance across gender, various discipline areas, and the 3 different kinds of levels of applicants: masters, doctoral students, and postdoctoral applicants. Successful applicants, in fact, all applicants will be advised of the outcome of their applications, and we're expecting that in early to mid-December. Successful applicants will be asked to sign a letter of acceptance, and once we see evidence of travel, such as a visa and a ticket, we can arrange the bank transfers of the fellowship funding. And returning fellows are required to submit an activity report within 4 weeks of returning from their program. And we've got a pro forma template on our website about how we'd like them to report on that. So these are the key dates. The applications close on the 13th of November. Results released in early to mid-December. The last day to complete your fellowship travel is the 15th of October next year. And the last date for us to receive your fellowship activity report is the 11th of November. So we encourage you all to apply and look forward to hearing your questions.
Okay, thank you, Karen. So I'll try to kind of quickly go through some of these questions. We have several of them. We'll try to answer as many as possible. And the question, one of the questions here is that whether the lecturers are eligible if they're within that 5 years term. Yes, lecturers are eligible. And any university, as it was explained by Dr. Barker, any university which have some sort of contact, doesn't have to be an MOU. If you have, researcher to researcher collaboration, your supervisor is having some interaction, then you're all eligible. And it doesn't matter what your origin is. If you are an Australian citizen, then you are eligible to apply from here to go to India. Even if you have Indian origin or any other origin, doesn't matter. The key requirement is you are an Australian citizen or a permanent resident to apply from here, from this side. Which universities in Australia are eligible? All universities in Australia are eligible. And as we mentioned before, you need to have some sort of collaboration with the host institution. There should be some interaction between home and host institution. Is the fellowship also for PhD programs? No, it won't support you as a PhD scholarship. But if you're a part of if you're a PhD student, you can, with the approval from the supervisor, you can use this fellowship to go and visit another institution and spend 4 weeks to 8 weeks time as part of your PhD program. And the project will be defined by your supervisors. Does university with which your university has no, there is no MOU requirement, just some sort of contact between the supervisors or an MOU, letter of intent, anything that you can show as an evidence. Okay, I'm presently pursuing master's degree in public health. Okay, this is a question that I'm going to read. Karen, you may be able to help us. I'm presently pursuing a master's degree in public health at the Public Health Foundation of India in New Delhi. I am from Bangladesh. My spouse is an Indian, and I'm living in India for the past 3.5 years. Being a resident of India, can I apply for this opportunity?
So we're currently requiring, well, we are requiring that Indians have Indian nationality. The Indian applicants have Indian nationality. So I think if you've only got a resident visa, that may not be enough, but I recommend that you contact us through the Art India website. We've got an address there, an email address, and we can address the particulars of your situation in that reply.
I think what we are saying is we are allowing permanent residents of Australia to apply. So if they have some sort of residency, we need to maybe discuss that internally, and then we can give you some advice on that. Will the fellowship completely cover my costs? No, yes, for the period of time. As it was explained, if you're coming from India to Australia, your fellowship amount is up to 10K. That will be enough for you to cover travel, accommodation, food, and everything. And the amount that you're receiving from Australia to go to India also is more than enough to cover all the costs. I don't think you have to contribute anything from your pocket. Doing my plant biotechnology. So there are questions about in terms of areas. Doesn't matter whether you are a biotechnologist or a computer scientist or are working in humanities, social sciences. The fellowship is open to all disciplines, irrespective of what research that you do. The selection criteria already are there on the guidelines. We will have an edited version of the presentation available online. Also, the recording may be available online, so you'll be able to get some more information in terms of the guidelines and accommodation details, all those things. So we will not help you to find accommodation, but we will give you some guidelines in terms of in a way to find accommodation. Your supervisors from host or home institutions can help. So lots of other ways that we can help you with the accommodation.
Yes, that's right. I'd just like to confirm that from Professor Ashok. The accommodation, we would expect that the host and home university can support you to find appropriate accommodation during your fellowship.
Yeah. So as I already mentioned, even if you are a lecturer or a faculty at an institution, if you are within that 5 years of completing your PhD, you are considered as an early career researcher. Yes, you can apply. Which are the institutes in India tied up to this program? All institutions who have some interaction with the Australian institutions are eligible. How to get the letter of support? You just please approach your host institute, your home institution international relations office. We had an information session for the international relations office people last week, so they know what to do. But if your institution does not have an international relations office, please contact us. We'll direct you where to go. So the rest of the questions are similar to the ones that we already looked at. So I'm just kind of scanning through them. Is both public and private universities in Australia are included in this program? I think, we don't differentiate between private or public institutions. As far as you are a research or an academic institution, you have collaboration on the other side, then you are eligible. We are not limiting this to public institutions. Okay, so again, question about travel and accommodation. The amount that you will receive as a fellowship will be enough to cover your travel and accommodation. Okay, so this question may be something that we have to clarify, Karen. I'm from India. I have done my joint PhD with an Australian institution in 2018. Am I still eligible? I think if you're back in India and if you're working at an academic institution in India, then you are considered as an ECR. Is that right, Karen?
Yes, that would be right. I'm just looking at the date now, 2018. So on in the final period of being eligible. So I guess, technically they would be eligible. If they're currently working at an Indian higher education institution.
Does it mean that students postgraduated in 2023 cannot apply for PhD program? This is not a PhD program that we are talking about. It is a fellowship. Whether you are a master's student or a PhD student or a postdoc, you can apply for this fellowship. So it's not a PhD program. So there are questions about whether the recording will be available online, Karen. The answer is yes. Are dual degree students, master's, bachelor, master students eligible to apply? I think if you are in the 4th and 5th year as part of your joint dual degree program, BSc, MSc, for example, if you are doing a significant amount of research in 4th and 5th year, so you are considered as a master student. So you have to provide some justification for that. I think that's one question. I don't have a passport now. Can I still apply? So Karen, I'm not sure whether they can still show some sort of evidence for residency, still apply for the passport.
Yes, so nationality can you know, we're open to receiving other kind of confirmation of nationality. In terms of validity of the passport, if you're applying for one, but you expect to receive it in good time in order to undertake a fellowship perhaps later on in 2023 and not too early in 2023, I think that will be fine too.
Yeah. How can we find about pre-existing engagement? You simply need to ask your institution or your supervisor, and they will tell you whether they have links to the institution that you want to visit. Sometimes the letter of support takes some time, and can we still apply now? You need the letter of support. That is an important document that we need. And normally it should not take that long. As you know, if you approach your international relations office, they can simply provide that letter of support. And you, before you go, you need to go through your supervisor also. So you start that kind of conversation immediately and try to get that letter of support. Okay, so this one, maybe you can help me, Karen. Does the 5-year post-PhD eligibility criteria include allowances for career interruptions?
That's a really good question, and can I ask you to post your question through our Arch India admin email address, because I think that will require some individual response.
Okay, so my new research study has been accepted by some sort of conference, which is hosted by Griffith University. I'm an independent early career researcher from India, completed PhD from IIT Madras. I think you have to be associated with an academic institution currently when you apply. If you are not part of an institution, then you are not eligible. I'm a research scholar in the field of international tax, and officer with tax office. Am I eligible? So do we consider tax office as an institution?
I think it goes back to what you said, Ashok, that they need to be enrolled, or I think if they're undertaking a PhD, they need to be enrolled at the institution and remain enrolled for the duration of the fellowship.
Yeah. There was a question about, do I need to identify a supervisor from host university? And the answer is yes. You need to have a home supervisor and a host institution supervisor, and they have to provide a letter of support. Can we extend the fellowship beyond 8 weeks? I think you will get the fixed amount, whether you want to stay beyond that 8 weeks. My guess is maybe you have to talk to your host and firm supervisors, and if they are able to support you, you can, but not as part of this fellowship.
Correct.
Do we need to arrange tickets and visa before getting the funding? The answer is no. You need to wait for the outcome of the fellowship application. And once you are awarded, then you can use the, you'll receive the funds, and you can use that for booking your flights and getting visa.
Yes, that's right. So we will need to see evidence that you've booked a ticket and have a visa before we send the funds into your bank account.
Like Tata Institute of Social Sciences has the type, but not all campuses will that matter. So basically what the question is, Karen, there are some institutes, they may have multiple campuses. And if we have one campus having some links, that is enough.
Yes, I think so. It's about the institutional pre-existing engagement activities. So if the institution has pre-existing engagement activities, that's enough. It doesn't matter which campus you're on.
Okay, how do institutions should international relations? I'm a part-time PhD scholar with Indian University and working with Indian University in Dubai. Will I be eligible for this fellowship?
Sorry, part-time.
So basically the student is maybe like a joint PhD student between Dubai and an Indian institution. As far as they are enrolled at an Indian institution, then they will be eligible.
That's right.
Are industry postdocs eligible to apply research collaboration with Australian companies? No. It has to be an academic or research institution, not an industry or a business. What if the MOU has expired? I'm still eligible. I think if you show some sort of pre-existing relationship, then I would assume you will be eligible.
Sorry, sir, can I interrupt because you're on the question of MOU? I just wanted to know, we don't have any earlier MOU. Can we establish one now for this fellowship?
I don't think Australian institutions will be signing an MOU immediately. So there are some protocols that you need to follow that may take quite a few weeks or months sometimes. So you just need to see other ways of engaging with your supervisors. Signing an MOU will not happen within few weeks, normally.
Is that for Indian institutes as well?
Yeah, so for example, your institute wants to sign an MOU with one of the Australian institutions. There is an approval process at each institution that they have to follow, and that will take quite a few weeks. I think there is someone who has kind of put their hands up for a long time. Subrajit, if you want to ask, please ask your question by unmuting. I'm just kind of going through the chat function now.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, myself, Subhrojit Bormon. I am currently working in IICB, Indian Institute of Chemical Biology. So, sir, our institute has a MOU with University of Western Australia and RMIT. But I'm not going with any joint PhD collaboration project, joint PhD program. So I want to apply for this fellowship. But the thing is, for applying this fellowship, how could I get the letter of support from host university that is in West Australia? And should I talk to the mentor in Australia that he also give a recommendation letter or something else?
Yes, you're right. Basically, you will approach the host institution supervisor first, or you can approach that person through your supervisor at the home institution, and then once they agree, then they can you can get a letter of support. Either you can approach or your supervisor can approach.
Okay, so the first thing is we need to talk with the host mentor. If he allow me, then only we can go with the letter of support from host institute.
Yeah, that's the ideal way to start. So if you first approach the host institution, and then if your home institution supervisor does not allow you to travel, then basically you are wasting your time.
Okay, sir. And so one more thing, in our institute, they also I'm currently registered in ACSIR. So in ACSR, there is one program is joint PhD program. So for joint PhD program, I didn't apply till now, but in further, should I apply if I also apply for this fellowship? Then again, can I apply for that joint PhD program?
I think the joint PhD program admission process will be, governed by the institution that you are going to apply, and they will not consider this fellowship as anything. It may help you to get the scholarship. It will not prevent you to get a joint PhD scholarship in future.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Nathan, you may help for this question. Please clarify: are applicants doing MD, MS, DM, MCH eligible, or should they have completed MD, MS, DM, or MCH within 5 years?
Not totally sure, Ashok. That would be one to maybe take back to the committee.
Okay.
Yeah. I'd imagine they've completed their undergraduate and the medical part is part of their postgraduate, they should be eligible. But if it's a joint degree, I'm not quite sure.
Okay, so maybe please post that question on ARC India website and we will try to get back to you. Okay, so the next question is, we have engagement or MOU with a number of institutions in Australia. Can we submit more than one LO or from host institution to increase our chances? So what you're saying is whether you can put 3 applications to 3 institutions. So I don't know. I don't think there's any limit on, say, for example, if you are from University X in India and you want to apply to 3 institutions in Australia, I don't think that we are going to restrict that. But Karen, do you have any suggestion here?
Well, it seems like a lot of trouble to apply to 3 different potential host institutions. I think it would be better if you applied to one and got your arrangements set up very nicely with just one. I wasn't sure if this was a question about multiple applications from a single institution rather than from a single applicant. If it's multiple applications from a single institution, that's fine. So you're welcome to put in, you and your fellow research students are welcome to all put in an application.
Okay, so I think we are almost approaching 4:25. Our time. We only have 5 minutes, and there are maybe another kind of 20 questions. So what we will do is we'll try to answer these questions and then put them on the website as frequently asked questions. And you are also more than welcome to post your questions through that website. And we will make sure that we will answer all the questions that you have. And due to the limited time, we may not be able to answer everything during this session. But I could see that there are lots of other questions that need to be answered. Please post these questions on our website, and we may also have a record of this chat function. We will go through them and we will answer these questions within the next kind of few days. Okay. And also, Lisa, if you want to say a few words before we finish this session.
Thank you very much, Professor. I want to thank all of the participants for their questions today. I'm hoping that your questions you feel have been responded to well by Dr. Karen Barker and Professor Ashok Kumar. I think that what you can see is that this is a very exciting fellowship program and a wonderful opportunity for you, and that you really consider applying, following, of course, all of the various criteria that need to be addressed, and of course, being mindful of the closing date of the 13th of November. I really think this is an opportunity to have your research impacted through, a research exchange, through people-to-people links with our 2 countries to learn more about each other. as two nations through this exchange. And I hope that, you really consider putting in an application and being part of this. And of course, recognising everything you need should be there on the Australian Researcher Cooperation Hub India website, the Arch India digital platform where your applications need to be made. But as Dr. Barker has said, and Professor Ashok Kumar, any further questions or anything you have, you can do that through Arch India, through that email address there. So thank you so much for today, and for our participants and for our speakers who have provided input into this important briefing session. And I hope to meet our applicants when they become our new fellows, either in Australia or in India throughout 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. So again, once again, thank you all. And we are sorry that we couldn't answer all the questions, but we will make sure that we will answer every question on our website. And before you, post further questions, please read the guidelines first. And the copies of the slides will be available. So try to read and get as much information as possible through that. And if you are not able to get an answer to your question through those guidelines and other things, then post your questions. Thank you all. And with this, we will close the session.